As noted already, my name is Ian Baxter. I run the Confucius Institute at Heriot-Watt University, and our agenda this afternoon for our High Again Global China workshop is to think about how to get China ready. Thinking about marketing insights and suggestions, particularly on the tourism, leisure, culture and hospitality side of things, which ETAG, as we know, as a marketing communications group, really thinking about how Edinburgh communicates with its customers and with its tourists, and selling Edinburgh as a fantastic destination that we know it is. And Alice is going to give us some tips and tricks on thinking about the insights and around maintaining that good communication with our Chinese customers, both here and overseas. And then we'll move on to Torrens from Red Unit, who will be thinking a bit more from the branding and the marketing point of view, thinking through some of the issues around sort of cultural difference, which is one of cultural difference, cultural similarity, and the cultural communication, intercultural communication that happens when we send marketing messages out into the wider world. And it's something that I know Red Unit specializes in, thinking about that intercultural communication. So welcome all. We will have opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the session. We will, as we've said already, we're recording the main part of the presentation, but we won't record the Q&A at the end, just to allow any general discussion. The slides, we'll make the slides available afterwards, and we look forward to questions and a really engaging session this afternoon. So I'm going to just say a little bit more. If you can go on to the next slide, Alice. Just a bit of background, just a preamble to how this all came about. And the Confucius Institute at Heriot-Watt, we've been supporting the Chinese New Year celebrations on a citywide scale for I think 4 years now. It's become embedded within the annual calendar for the city. And at the Confucius Institute, we're very much there to support language learning, cultural awareness, understanding cultural opportunities, and understanding a bit more about the culture of China, and maintaining good relations and friendly relations between the countries. Our role is very much to support cross-cultural understanding, and we do this through a variety of methods. Please check out our website we have in normal times we run about 60 to 70 events over a year, from classes, workshops, courses to get involved in, and of course supporting the major cultural celebrations that go on within the city as well. And we've been particularly pleased that Red Unit have designed a fantastic set of marketing for us for our Chinese New Year celebrations that we've just come to the end of in recent weeks, having a roaring New Year as we've entered the Chinese New Year of the Tiger. So without further ado, I'm going to hand on to Alice to talk about the tips and tricks and China communication. Over to you, Alice.
Thank you, Ian. So a quick introduction about myself. I am Alice He. I am the project manager of the China Ready initiative at ETAG, Edinburgh Tourism Action Group. We've been running the fantastic initiative in the city for over 6 years now, and it's an incredible journey to promote Edinburgh as a must-visit destination towards the Chinese visitors, and we've achieved phenomenal results in recent years. And of course, we've been through some big challenges over the last 2 years due to the COVID-19, but at the moment, we think it's a good timing and a very essential timing for us to reconsider what we can do to promote ourselves and to reconnect ourselves to Chinese market. So that's what today's session is about. So first of all, some people might ask the question, why is the Chinese market so important to us? From a tourism perspective, China was the largest outbound tourism market in the world in 2019, pre-pandemic. It has a huge volume and also the biggest value coming from China. It's a top 3 market in the UK, and also a really fast increased market in Scotland. And for Edinburgh itself, we've seen a huge growth over the past few years, that we've seen loads of Chinese visitors came, and some of them came to study or for visit, and many of them would come again. Visit Scotland did a sentiment survey a few years ago, and over 87% of Chinese visitors would love to come again to visit Scotland. So it's a very friendly market, and it's utterly important for us. Also, you might want to know, so what's happening right now and after the 2 years pandemic. So here's some updates. First thing is, although China is now still conducting the zero COVID policy, but over 87% of the population has now been fully vaccinated. And also, since the Winter Olympic has been successfully delivered, and lots of positive informations are showing that China will reopen again very soon. We don't have a very certain information source that when is it going to happen, but it is very positive at the moment. Since like the China Southern Airlines, they are going to operate direct flights between Guangzhou to London in mid-March, is also a very positive sign. As we know that in the past 2 years, due to the pandemic and all kinds of new variants, the direct flights between UK and China has been postponed. So Chinese residents and students, visitors, they could only fly to each country via like a third country in transfer. In terms of the domestic tourism recovery, so last year has seen 54% in terms of 2019's level. And the spending on tourism was up by 31% compared to 2020. Lots of organizations has done sentiments research in China in terms of international travel. Those and results show that those experienced travelers are the most likely and most willing to travel overseas again, a group. They would likely to be the first group to travel overseas. And also don't forget that we every year will see loads of Chinese students coming to the UK to study. I will extend this topic later on. And Chongyou, which is a Chinese online travel review site, has done a travel sentiment and new trends research for 2021. So that here's some keywords in terms of travel trend in China, including outdoor activities, local food and experiences, cultural and arts, and special hotels, which I believe Edinburgh and Scotland would tick all the boxes. And top reasons for travel internationally, the first is scenery, and cities and culture, food and shopping, history and culture, and art exhibitions. Again, we do have all these kind of offerings, and what we do is to make sure Edinburgh stay and Scotland stay on top of the mind of the Chinese visitors. And another positive news is that based on the Chongyou's report, UK remains to be one of the top 10 international destinations for Chinese travelers. So today I'm going to cover lots of information about what are the things you need to know and what are the things you can do in terms of getting China ready. So the first thing to know is that, as I'm sure most of you would already know, that the dynamic or the ecosystem of the Chinese social media is completely different compared to the to where we live. right now, partly because of the restricted internet connection. So in mainland China, people wouldn't be able to access Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, this kind of social platforms without a VPN connection. But it doesn't mean that they can definitely not connect with them. So that's why we have a completely different set of social media platforms. So these are a few platforms you need to know about. The first of all is WeChat. That's some people would call it like a Swiss Army knife in terms of social app. It is all in one. And it is your WhatsApp, it is your Facebook, Instagram, it's your Uber, it can even be your Tinder. And so every Chinese, most of the Chinese people would be a WeChat user, and that's the first and most important app to download if you want to visit China or live in China. And also bear in mind that Chinese students or visitors, when they are overseas, WeChat would still be the major social platform they use to connect with, to stay in touch with their friends and family, and to get information, and to use loads of the functions on it to connect with the world. And Weibo is similar like Twitter plus Instagram. Lots of information are shared, and normally short messages with loads of images and videos. It is very good for following the trendy news, to follow celebrities, and also to discuss with all kinds of matters. Another one is RED. It is now a very popular app used by the Chinese people, both in China and outside China. People are using it to share product reviews on cosmetics or all kinds of brands, and they also share loads of lifestyle and travel tips. You will find a whole lot of content about Edinburgh and Scotland on this app, all user generated, and which means you will find lots of useful information about your business. If you can find someone who can access those apps for you and do a quick research about what are people, if there's people talking about your business or what kind of things they are talking about your business, that would be really helpful. And Douyin is the video sharing social network, which is original Chinese version of TikTok. So, but bear in mind, TikTok is used in overseas market, and Douyin is used in China. The contents are different, completely different, and users also are completely different. But the way they work is very similar. So loads of short videos shared on Douyin every day, and it's based on algorithm. So the app will push the interested content to you on daily basis. Another social platform to know is Bilibili. It is a video sharing website. It started with animation and gaming video content, very similar to YouTube, but now it covers all kinds of content and topic, and people also upload their vlogs on it, lots of recreation on it. It is very important if you want to target the younger generations, like Gen Z or even younger than Gen Z, the teenagers. And one of the very interesting function on Bilibili is the bullet comments. So users will be able to leave comments and push the comments on screen, like in real time. So it's a very interactive way of watching a content, and it's very different from YouTube in this way. So these are the 5 most important social apps I think you should know about the Chinese social media ecosystem. So here is what we have been doing in Edinburgh. in Edinburgh, we have launched our official Weibo and WeChat account in November 2016. And in just over 5 years' time, we have achieved over 108,000 followers and over 300 million content views to date. And our Weibo and WeChat are consistently ranked on top of the world, competing with other city destinations around the world. So in 2021, our Weibo was #2 in the world, while our WeChat was #5 in the world. And we remain to be the top Weibo and WeChat account in Europe, and we have outperformed all other UK and European cities, as well as Visit Scotland and Visit Britain's Weibo and WeChat channels. So in last year, the three top most best performed WeChat posts were all from Edinburgh, from our channel. And we also started a Forever Edinburgh campaign during the pandemic, which now has over 27 million content views on our Weibo. So one way, if you want to know how to be part of it, it is actually very easy. So the whole Chinese social media campaign is co-funded by a group of tourism businesses across the city. So our partners includes Edinburgh Airport, Edinburgh Castle, National Museum, Waldorf Astoria Hotel, LNER, all these kind of very active and very important tourism businesses across the city. So there are two levels of partners, partner level you can join. One is partner, another one is premium partner. The benefits of joining the social media campaign partnership includes that we will create editorial content for you in-house. We are proud of our content creation, that we do make we do write all our contents in-house. We never use a third party, and all our content are authentic and organic. And also you will have exclusive access to our student campaign. You will have prioritized coverage in Edinburgh's Chinese New Year campaign and beyond. And we also help our partners to organize dedicated student events and live stream sessions, etc. So recently we have delivered a live stream session at the newly opened Johnny Walker Princes Street. So the live stream session worked really well. We had over 131,000 views of the live stream so far, and with over 2.3 million impressions and over 600 engagements. So it's a great way of staying in touch with our audience. It's a great way of inspiring the visitors what we have to offer. And it's also the most effective way to interact and engage with our prospective visitors. So we are currently in the Year 6 partnership and the Year 7 partnership, which will run through April 2022 to March 2023. Will be open for registration in March. So if you're interested, please feel free to get in touch with me afterwards. So the next thing I'd like to cover is the importance of the Chinese student population in the UK. So based on the latest statistics, there are over 143,000 Chinese students in the UK in the 2020 and 21 academic year. So 12% of them are in Scotland. These are our most important target audience at the moment. While the majority of the visitors cannot physically be here, the students are actually your opportunities just right at your doorstep. So I can't say it's enough about how important they are and how important it is to engage with Chinese students. And we know that Edinburgh is a very popular destination in the UK. So most of the students will travel to Edinburgh at some point of their academic year. So what we have been doing here at ETAG is that we have published a Chinese student travel guidebook to Edinburgh. It's been 2 years. We will update the guidebook again before the next academic year. Also, we have been running Chinese student welcome events at universities ever since we started the Chinese social media campaign. So before the pandemic, we were able to go into the campus to have a face-to-face welcome events with the students, with all the freshers, to promote, to talk about the city and our partners. So it's a great opportunity for businesses to promote yourself to the students. And during the pandemic, we have moved the event online. So last day we did the virtual welcome event with the University of Edinburgh, which was also really well received. And in 2020, we even went to Manchester and London to deliver very similar kind of events to students based in other cities, and all really well received. And every time after the event, I will be able to create a dedicated student WeChat group, which is a similar idea to a WhatsApp group. So in this case, I will be able to share all the what's on or special offers or all kinds of information directly with the students. And it is also a very good communication tool for our partners to have direct engagement with the students. So this year, after last year's welcome event, we now have a student group with over 540 members in it. It works really well for us, and I would and we will definitely keep doing the same thing for this year and beyond. Another thing is that the Chinese students nowadays, they are different. Many of them are from affluent family. Most of them are super active on social media. And some of them are even influencers themselves. Before they came here, they might already have thousands, 10,000s of followers or something like that. And the content they share online can be hugely important to us as destination and also important to businesses. So what kind of, and every content they create during their stay here will inspire our future visitors. So again, it is very important to provide good experiences to the visitors, especially the students, and to encourage them to share content on their own social media platforms. And also students has been a really, really important resource for us in terms of user-generated photos and contents. So each year we receive thousands of very lovely photos of Edinburgh from the student population. Because we encourage them to take photos of Edinburgh, and we encourage them to share with us, and we will post the photos for them and tag their social accounts. So it has been worked really, really well for us, and all kinds of photos and contents they create will again inspire more prospective visitors and students to choose Edinburgh as the destination to come. And also the students can be a very important recruitment opportunities for businesses. Please bear in mind that all the Chinese students in the UK, they can work up to 20 hours per week during their study, and they are able to work full-time after their term time. And also the UK government has launched a new graduate visa scheme to allow students, Chinese students, to stay for another 2 or 3 years in the UK. So that is a really good opportunities for businesses if you consider to recruit a Chinese-speaking staff. And I will quickly mention about what kind of benefits it will bring to you. And because we have really see the student as a very important market for us, and based on all this kind of student campaign we've been doing in past years, we have seen real benefits from our partners' businesses. So, for example, Johnson's of Elgin, the Edinburgh store, 60% of their retail businesses are from the Chinese students across the UK, not only from Edinburgh. So students will travel from London to Edinburgh and go to their store to buy a cashmere scarf or kind of present for their family. Again, it is just demonstrate how important they are, and don't only look at the students that based in Edinburgh. Let's look at the student population across the UK, because we know that they are travel all the time and they will travel to Edinburgh. And also last year, we were able to work with Disney to promote the Beauty and the Beast musical. And so they have created exclusive student discount and ticket sales linked to us. And we have sold over 290 student tickets just simply through our student network. So these are some examples of how we work with students and how effective it can be. And also another very good opportunities and for all the businesses across Scotland is our Chinese New Year campaign, which is generously supported by Confucius Institute at Heriot-Watt University. So this year we have teamed up with Confucius Institute again, and also we've been working with Red Unit as our design partner. So we have delivered a dedicated Year of the Tiger website with 49 Chinese New Year event listings covering all kinds of activities. And because it is now the 4th year of the Chinese New Year Festival, so every year we see some kind of increase and growth in terms of that kind of business engagement and the understanding of the Chinese culture as well. So it's been a really good journey launching and delivering the Chinese New Year campaign in Edinburgh. Also, we have we've got 75 telephone box across the city to promote our lovely designed the campaign key visual with our website on it. And we've worked with the List and Forever Edinburgh channels to target the local audience. And also through the PR activities, we have got extensive media coverage, reaching a potential local audience of over 711,000 people locally. And we used Edinburgh's Weibo and WeChat to share 20 Chinese New Year related content with over 1.9 million total impressions. And also we have an exclusive Chinese New Year video with over 490,000 views, which is fantastic. And I personally really like the video. So I'd like to take this opportunity to share this video with you to have a look of what's happening in the city.
汉堡给大家拜年啦，过年好呀！
新年快乐，春节快乐，祝您大吉。
Happy New Year, Edinburgh misses you.
So the video worked really well for us, and the most interesting comment I've seen from our channel is that quite a few audience followers were saying that, oh, it looks like more festive the way you celebrate Chinese New Year in Edinburgh than we celebrate Chinese New Year in China. So that's what we want. We want to create authentic and really festive celebration in the city for both Chinese population and local residents. It's all about inclusive, it's all about cultural diversity, it's all about celebrate. And also normally Chinese New Year happen in a relatively quiet time of the year. So I think it's a really good opportunity for businesses to get involved, to get some more footfall and to get engaged in this kind of free campaign. So that's the Chinese New Year. And also another thing to mention today is that we have created a dedicated Chinese cultural training toolkit called Unpack China. We're going to launch it on ETAG conference on the 31st of March. And this toolkit is a free and open to all online resource. It includes 16 bespoke video episodes to help the tourism industry getting ready for the Chinese visitors, because we know that they are coming back. And it is a very good resource for you to use to train your staff, especially the frontline staff. And we have got short videos covering all kinds of very useful topics like the Chinese visitor profile, Chinese culture and language, mobile payments, Chinese students, and you will find also you'll find case studies from other businesses about what they have been doing in order to promote themselves to the Chinese market. And if those of you who hasn't done it already, I would recommend you to sign up for the ETAG conference. It's going to be at EICC, and it's a full-day program, and it's the first conference we are hosting ever since the pandemic. So lots of useful information will be shared at the conference. So before I finish, here are some tips and suggestions for all the businesses. But I have to clarify that in terms of what kind of things you should do, it really varies case by case. Depends on what kind of businesses, what's your scale, what's your budget, what's your plan, what kind of visitors you want to attract. But here are some general suggestions I think will benefit everyone in general. So first of all is to use Chinese social media to increase awareness of your businesses. So you can either join Edinburgh's Chinese social media campaign partnership, or the very least you could do is encourage your customers to share, to take photos and videos of your business and share on social media, on their personal social media. So everything they do will be the word of mouth to inspire more visitors in the future. And also provide a very good experience for them. And if you're retail or a big tourist attractions, do provide Chinese mobile payment methods if possible. We know that the Scotch Whisky Experience and Harvey Nichols and also Edinburgh Military Tattoo, they're all offering the Chinese mobile payments, and also the National Museum of Scotland's gift shop. So which is a very convenient way for Chinese visitors to pay, and it will also increase the willingness of them to buy stuff from you. And the next thing is to train your staff to understand the cultural differences. So that's what we wanted to do through the Unpack China training toolkit. So it will be launched very soon, and do keep in touch, and we will announce the website at the end of March, and it will be free access to everyone. And hopefully you can make a good use of the toolkit. And the next is engage with the UK-based student population. Definitely engage with the students. I'm sure many of you have received student customers already, but do think about what you can do to better engage with them. And another thing to consider is to add Chinese holidays and festivals to your marketing calendar. So including but not limited to the Chinese New Year, the Chinese national holiday, or some kind of smaller scale holidays in like the Labor Day holiday, the Moon Festival, the Mid-Autumn Festival. So these can be the key dates to plan some special activities or special offer, and lots of brands even do limited edition like Chinese New Year products to celebrate. So there are lots of things you can do and to help promoting your businesses. And recruit Chinese speaking staff. It is a very helpful way to get your businesses China ready, especially during like very busy season, especially when our visitors can physically be back. So first of all, there's no language barrier between the Chinese speaking staff and Chinese visitors. So if it's for the student population, you don't need to worry too much about the language, because everyone who study in the UK, they can speak a good level of English. But in the normal time, lots of the visitors, they might not be confident enough of their English, and they're more likely to go to those Chinese speaking staff in order to have a more convenient shopping experience. And also another thing the Chinese speaking staff can do for you is that they could help you to do a quick research on Chinese social platforms in terms of what people are talking about your business or your brand, and also to monitor that kind of word of mouth, or what kind of contents there are there on those social platforms. And another tips is that you could, if you're a retail or a small restaurant, you can easily set up a WeChat account, a personal WeChat account for your businesses, and to connect with your Chinese customers and to keep in touch with them, and also send some special offerings using WeChat group or all kind of WeChat functions to build up your own Chinese visitor and customer database. And also the last but not least is make sure your business or product is visible towards Chinese visitors. So if you are a tourist attraction, or if you are a accommodation, or if you are a restaurant, or you are a tour operator, do you check if you are selling your product or selling your hotel room via Ctrip or Qunar or Fliggy or Tunio or Mafengwo? And if you're a restaurant, make sure there's presence of your restaurant on Dianping or Mafengwo or Chongyou and RED, which is very important. And also social media. You don't need, it's not necessary for every business to have your own Weibo and WeChat account. I never recommend that, because it takes very dedicated resource and understanding to be able to run a successful social media campaign for a brand or a business. So it's always easier to join force with this kind of city level campaign like what we do in Edinburgh. But do keep an eye on what people are talking about your business on social media. And the very last tip is that word of mouth is key. So I always raise this example that in previous years, the most popular restaurant in Edinburgh, I always ask the question, but no one can give me the right answer. So in previous years, the most popular restaurant in Edinburgh towards the Chinese visitors is Muscle Inn. The reason is simple. some Chinese visitors went to the restaurant, they loved it, and they shared their reviews on all kinds of social media and travel websites. And so those kind of content has been seen by more Chinese visitors, and people just go to the same place, like just go to the same place that other people have recommended about. And that's the thing happening nowadays as well. So every time when someone recommends a restaurant or a shop in Edinburgh, and there will be more people going to the same place just to get the good experience. So word of mouth is key. And also, before I finish, I have put together some sentiments through our Weibo and WeChat to show you that the appetite of Chinese visitors of Edinburgh towards Edinburgh. So you will see that many of them have lived or visited Edinburgh before, and they have a very, very fond feeling and experience of the city, and they just can't wait to come back again. So what I want to say here is that our visitors will come back. It's just a matter of time, and we do need to consider what we need to do in terms of engaging with the market as soon as possible. Remember that when the international travel resume, we will be competing with all the destinations around the world. China has been the most important outbound tourism market for many, many of the destinations, and everyone would love to welcome them back. So it really depends on what we do now for them to come back to us. So here's my email, alice.he@etag.org.uk. So get in touch if you want to know more about the partnership, or if you want to know more about the Chinese market, or if you think that you have any questions, feel free to leave in the chat box. And also we will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of Soran's presentation. So now I will hand over to Soran's. Thank you very much.
Can I start straight away or?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, so let me share my screen. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here to talk a little bit about some of the ideas and insight we have about Chinese market and beyond. So if you're in Edinburgh, you probably already hear about our name. So we are an intercultural design consultancy based in Edinburgh, and we help business and brands in the UK to access to the Chinese market, and not limited to the Chinese market recent years. So what we usually do is basically we're creating innovative strategy, design and customer experience, as well as content to help business to reach out to their potential customer. So our client base are covering basically from public sector to private sector, and the main area that we are working in are luxury, retail, tourism and hospitality. So yeah, so I'm going to go deep into the content, right? So firstly, before we go into the key point, the suggestion or some of the ideas that I'm going to talk about today, it'll be really interesting to see some of the data about the Chinese market. I'm sure Alice already touched upon on some of these numbers, and it's really interesting to see there are actually some growth on the numbers of the Chinese students as well. So first data I want to say is the post-COVID recovery. So basically, we can see China is basically leading the way of the post-COVID recoveries. You can see the overall growth in 2020, even in the most difficult time, it shows growth of 2.3%, and it actually bounced back quite quickly in the 2021, showing 7.9% of growth. So China is actually leading the way of post-COVID recovery. And the second point I want to touch upon is of course, the Chinese student number, and you can see even the number here, Alice just showed the number is actually bigger than the number that I showed here. So it's really important to capture the Chinese student number because it is one of the biggest, it basically is the biggest group of overseas students in the UK. And there is a really interesting thing to see the Chinese students' mentality today is maybe back then, 10 years ago, many Chinese students, they come out overseas to study, and then they would like to stay in a foreign country. But we can see more and more, a very big number of Chinese students in recent years is they choose to study in an overseas university, and after that, they choose to go back home. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing because they come here to experience, you know, the life and the cultures, and what they actually will do is they will bring all these products and experience and memory back home and become the ambassador of the destination or the country. So that is actually a really interesting trend we can see in the market. So I actually put on some data in here. It's actually a report from Visit Britain. What we can see here is the opportunity is Scotland is actually the second most visited location in the UK for Chinese visitors outside London. So that shows Scotland is actually very popular among the Chinese students. And in Scotland, no doubt Edinburgh is the most popular destination for the Chinese visitor outside London. And there's a really interesting thing to show here is most notably, these visitors are actually students. So they may study down south, but then they come to Edinburgh to travel. So these two data shows huge potential for the Scottish and Edinburgh business if you not think about Chinese yet, so Chinese market yet. So this shows a good opportunity for you to actually look into it. So coming into today, the topics of today. So I'm gonna basically talk about these three things, 1, 2, 3. First point is how to create a great reason for visitor to visit. So the second thing is how to make your service more accessible and engaging with QR codes. The last point is how to hack the social game and develop your own market. So let's go into the first point, how to create a great reason for visitors to visit. So before doing that, I think it's really important to actually see some insight. So into this, the first point, what I want to say, the first part is I'm going to talk about hit the heart with proposition and to create a really, really interesting proposition to attract the customer. And then what is really interesting to do before we go into the propositions, what is really interesting to understand is to understand what the visitor actually coming for. So according to this report from Visit Britain, there are 3 things that UK are very, in the UK are very attractive to Chinese customer. First thing is the cultural aspect, it's the cultural attraction. Second thing is local food and drinks. Third thing is natural beauty. And then there is another really interesting thing we can find from this report is the biggest groups, the biggest group of personas in this, all the visitors in the UK, especially in Chinese market, are firstly the bus seeker who are very spontaneous. They like holiday full of action and excitement, and then to explore all different things. And the second part, and the second group is the, you know, explorers who are enjoy outdoors and to visit something must see, and then to embracing local culture and explore with a really relaxing kind of pace. So these 2 persona actually giving us quite a lot of insight to really think about what kind of proposition should we create to attract them. Before I go deeper, there are 2 things I'm summarizing here is because if you actually look into Chinese market is huge. And then I'm not sure if you ever seen some of the advertisement content created inside the Chinese market. And the nature of the Chinese market is, you know, really strong on competition. And then because the country is huge and there are so many competition, and then so there are also many choices as well. So there are, I would say it's an explosion of choice that make, you know, customer have a really high expectation because they have so many choices and one brand is trying to get louder to the other. So that make, you know, the whole market is like buzzing. And that somehow is a little bit different from some marketing or advertisement we can see in the Western market. But good news is like Edinburgh and Scotland, as we can see, is the most visited destination outside London for Chinese visitors. And then Scotland has such a strong characteristics and also really rich on history, and not to say we have beautiful landscape. So all of these kind of characteristic of Scotland, I believe, can actually create some really strong proposition to attract Chinese customers. And then here are some ideas I want to share with you before I get into some more picturistic content. Firstly, it's really important that you can utilize the heritage, the story, and culture, and to actually attract people's eyes while you're doing some content, for example, copywriting, and then or creating creating some graphic design. Really need to make long history really bold, and then present yourself as locally well known, or connect with some celebrities or movies if there are, because we know that there are so many movies have been filmed in Scotland. It's really, really interesting to associate yourself to this kind of movies and celebrity culture. And there's a really interesting thing that we can know, that Edinburgh is actually pretty popular among the Chinese visitors. One of the reasons is because one of the Chinese superstar called Jay Chou, who actually filmed a music video in Edinburgh. So that become very, very popular. There's so many students want to come here to experience what have been filmed in Jay Chou's video. And also there are so many movies have been filmed in Edinburgh, and that also trigger a lot of visits as well. And then the second thing is actually, if you don't have this heritage story to tell, it's also quite interesting to utilize some of your product or your service. You can create this kind of title, for example, the best in town, uniquely selected or created, the birthplace of, for example, Harry Potter, the favorite place of some celebrities, or will enjoy something like never before. I actually have three examples here, maybe giving you some stronger idea of what I mean. For example, Elephant House is definitely locally well-known and also internationally well-known. And unfortunately, recently there was a fire in there, but it doesn't get away its kind of aura and popularity among the tourists, because everyone knows that it's the birthplace of Harry Potter, and everyone come here just to go to visit this because of the title. And Wandering in Town has been living in Edinburgh for 7 years. There are also some other interesting shops I personally found have a really strong proposition. For example, there's a whiskey shop on Royal Mile, and there's a title on the window basically says, "This is Scotland's oldest independent bottler." And that's such a good title to attract tourist eyes. And then the last one is actually a pub on Grassmarket, the smallest pub in Scotland. And I remember I visited this pub back then when I was a student, and it's one of the the first ever visit of pubs, one of the first bunch of pubs that I ever visited when I was a student. So I still remember that pretty well. So I think this title is actually really, really interesting and eye-catching. So creating this kind of proposition actually help you to attract attention. So really important to think about what is your headline. So this is a question to you. Second point about this in this part, catch the attention with execution. As I said at the beginning, Chinese customers are looking for something quite out there, quite outstanding, quite bold, quite colorful, because that's what they get used to in their own market. And then there's some interesting research we can find online. This research is delivered by Timo and Nielsen, and we can see in Chinese internet, there are some keywords are getting more and more popular. You can see the first thing is the sense of design. It can see 168% growth on Timo. Designer edition, it shows 120.6% growth on internet. And then it shows a significant increase of search of this kind of design driven content, and customers are really looking for something well designed and looking good. And there is another interesting data also in the same report. Post-90s millennials and Gen Zs are 3 times more influenced by design while they are making a purchase. So creating something looking good, Instagrammable, photo-worthy, it's super important in these days. And then I'm going to give you some quick examples. So this is one of the most popular, I'm not sure, have you heard about bubble teas? But one of the most popular bubble tea or how to say, innovative drink shops in China called Haiti. What by actually making it super popular is because of its design and creative concept. And all of these shops, you know, have this kind of interesting theme and interior design and all of their drinks. What I found really interesting is before, when we talk about bubble tea and people will say, oh, using a lot of artificial, you know, ingredient, but what making Haiti really interesting is they actually bring in the real Chinese tea into making their tea drink, and that actually making it really, you know, innovative, healthy, but also, you know, infusing that kind of traditional Asian culture into these drinks for the younger customer. And that's such an interesting concept. I mean, you can also see some package design in China. This is a very popular chocolate in Chinese market these days. And you can see it's pretty modern, and then incorporate some English typographies, not just Chinese, and then to create a kind of really modern look. And then that's, you know, what the Chinese market are currently chasing. Another really interesting thing is architecture design. This is a newly opened art gallery in South China. Is designed by Japanese architects, and then it become such a hot spot of photograph is purely because the design and the interior is super minimal and super zen, and then it shows that how customer are, you know, looking for this kind of eye-catching and bold design in this case. And there is another really interesting example is this shopping mall in Hong Kong. So it's called K11 UC. So K11 is a really interesting shopping mall in the Greater China area, mainly in Hong Kong, South China, but it also has its site in Chengdu as well. So the concept is they're trying to bring in this kind of art experience, art exhibition into the whole shopping, you know, center. It's not just going in to shop or go to cinema or get some food. It's also in between all the spots, there will be some really interesting design or exhibition and inspirations all around. So to create that kind of experience. And just looking at this interior design is really, really bold and eye-catching, and it's become a very hot spot of photograph as well. On the internet, you can see a lot of photo of it. Next example, famous Chinese sport brand, Li-Ning, they actually create this art movement, you know, design and also campaign to promote their product, incorporating art and culture into design and brand. It's kind of trend these days in the Chinese market. So I'm sure those examples giving you some inspiration to, you know, create something, to execute something eye-catching. Then we move into the next point, is to create moments that are worth sharing. So come back into the example we talked about just now, Haiti. What making it quite attractive to the customer these days is it kind of put the design thinking and put that kind of share photo-worthy kind of idea into everything they do, no matter from interior design or their product design, their advertisement, the poster, and even the merchandise product they create, like beyond the drink itself. So for example, they work with Adidas to create this you know, this purple color scheme design runner, like shoes, and then to also, you know, kind of combine with that kind of color scheme infuse that color scheme into the drink itself as well. So it's kind of very, very interesting combination of ideas and creating this kind of really worth sharing kind of ideas in everywhere, every touch point. So here I'm going to give you an example that we're trying to put this idea into a local business that we work with in the past couple of years. So this client, the name called Bubble Tea Break, is basically our client. It's a bubble tea shop based in Newcastle. What we have done with them is back in the day, they actually, we helped them to, back in the day, they are like very popular bubble tea shops among the Chinese community. And then what they're actually thinking to do, and what they actually found out is actually in the recent years, there are so many, for example, non-Asian or non-Chinese customer go to their shop, and then they do see a huge market of attracting non-Chinese customer. And then that's actually a really interesting thing to do. And then that's why they think about to rebrand themselves. And we help them to create this brand that can associate with Chinese customer, but more than Chinese customer. Here are just some examples that we created. Yeah, and then during design, we also help them to engage with this kind of young creator to create this kind of creator dreamers communities. And with these kind of young people, we can actually branch out to even bigger of customer. But the most important thing is in these occasions, we create something really photo worthy, and especially this interior design that we created in the shop, it become like a photograph hotspot. And there are quite a lot of young people just go to the shop and then buy a drink and then they will take a photo, and that kind of helping them a lot to on the exposure and coverage to reach out much bigger group of customer. So you can see here, I actually put some Instagram screenshot, and what I want to say is like, yes, if you want to attract Chinese customer, definitely go for WeChat, but there are some interesting data showing that the Chinese customer, the Chinese user group on Instagram also is such a big group, and also it shows a very big interesting growth, particularly in the past few years, from 2.7 million to 3 million. So there are quite a lot of Chinese customer, or especially the younger group of customer, they will be on Instagram. So it's quite an interesting tool that if you want to engage with Chinese people in the overseas market, especially in the local market, to consider Instagram. Many Chinese students and Chinese young people are looking for inspiration from this platform. And what I think this example is quite interesting is bubble tea initially is a product from the Chinese market, from the Asian market, but I think it shows a really interesting potential to bring it to a much broader audience. It's not only just for Chinese market. So what we think is really interesting, and then overall this year we create a lot of solutions for our client, is we develop from Chinese market, but we try to help them to branch out to a much bigger audience, or we create a much bigger plan to incorporate Chinese customer in. So the concept is helping you to, you invest a little bit, you invest the money into doing its marketing and design, but we want you to, maximize the value to reach out as much customer as possible beyond the Chinese market. And you can see these days, Chinese customer, especially the younger customer, they're really looking for that kind of international experience, international expressions. On the other hand, the Western younger customer, they are looking for something alternative, and that shows a huge potential to bring the culture together, to design something truly intercultural. And then this example, bubble tea brick, we think it's a prime example. And then beyond the brand design, what we're actually helping them to do these days is actually we co-creating some really interesting products and to attract, we work with some of the creator I showed earlier to create some dedicated product to reflect the cultures. And then after all this design, it does what the client reflect back to us is like they kind of become like a local, celebrity-like shop. Like many young people just go there to take photos and buy this kind of celebrity-inspired drinks. And then we think this is such an interesting experience and also a really good business case to showcase here, to share this as an inspiration for the local businesses. And the last point about in this part is I want to talk about is the old school is the new black. And then in the recent years, we can see some really interesting thing happen in the Chinese market is because the development of the economy, it's create a kind of sense of proud, patriotic emotion. And then many Chinese customers start to realize the importance of traditional culture, and they really want to buy in the kind of things. So you can see what's happening in the Chinese market is you can see this kind of heritage revival movement. And this is just a bunch of design created by Forbidden Cities. And then this is actually the souvenirs, and then the merchandise they create, utilizing their own culture, utilizing the empire's image to create this kind of very fun and interesting products. And then another really interesting thing happened in Forbidden City is there is this corner tower cafe open back then. It's pre-pandemic, so it's becoming a really popular spot because it's combining the modern Western culture on coffee, but then it's actually opened in the Forbidden City. So you can see two cultures merging to each other and then to create this kind of very interesting experience for the customer. And you can also see, this is actually a lipstick that's super popular pre-pandemic. And basically it's also the products created by the Palace Museum, basically it's Forbidden City in collaboration with the cosmetic brands. And then they're utilizing this kind of traditional palace, you know, the Queen's aesthetics to create this kind of lipsticks, and it become very, very popular overnight in the Chinese market. Such a good example of showing, you know, utilizing traditional culture in a modern design. And the next example is quite similar, is this brand called Forests. They are utilizing traditional Chinese images to create this kind of very modern look of design. And this brand is not only popular in China now, it's also very popular outside China. And then it shows the potential that, you know, the modern customer are looking for something alternative, you know, really cultural and unique. And then leaning, I showed earlier, of their art direction on their campaign. And here they're actually creating series of design inspired by this very famous Chinese ancient, it's like all this Buddha caves in the desert. And then it's a really, really famous destination of culture in China, and then Li-Ning actually create a series of design inspired by this. So what we can see is a really interesting trend is, you know, the younger generation or the current market are looking for this kind of alternative point of view. And then there's a report already showing, you can find it on the internet, there's a link in here, is Gen Z, internationally wide, Gen Z are searching for nostalgic comfort that brings together the love for the past with the hope and dreams for the better world. And then they want to embrace something from the past, but a little bit more innovative, with a little bit more creativity. And from the China perspective, the growing patriotic sentiment to celebrate the revival of Chinese culture alongside the significance economy development, and that developed that kind of trend that the Chinese customer want to embrace this kind of modernized Chinese traditional culture. And I think that shows a really great potential for a city like Edinburgh, because we have loads of heritage in here. How can we modernize our culture? How can we modernize our heritage and bring that to the modern customer, for example, Chinese customer and beyond Chinese customer? What can we do about it? And I'm really, really interested in exploring this topic. But that's not our today's theme. But what we can actually do for you, if you're interested in, is if your business is based in Edinburgh, what we can do for you is we help you to create this kind of brand localization and innovation plan. We can help you to explore your USP for Chinese and Asian visitors to create this kind of unique product and services, and also a marketing promotion plan for it. Last but not least, to think bigger, to target local customer who want to buy something different. I mean, there are so many products these days from China, but not only for Chinese customer. The second point of this big presentation is to make your service more accessible and engaging with QR codes. And then there are some really interesting data we find in here. It's in the UK and Europe, more than 36% of the smartphone user will scan at least one QR code per week. And the number in Chinese market is way bigger. The reason why is because QR code, it's already very familiar for Chinese customer, thanks to the scanning, program embedded in WeChat. And then because of pandemic these days, I'm sure everyone already noticed you scan QR code. You're so much more familiar with QR code than pre-pandemic. It's because every time we go into the restaurant, we need to scan the QR code. So kind of QR code become universally, familiar with all the customer in the world. And then, so it's really important, I think, or very interesting, we think, to leverage this trend to, serve the customer within their comfort zone. And then, but there is a really interesting thing is like, you can see the Chinese customer, comparing the Chinese customer and local customer, the intention of scanning code, usually QR code, are different. So in here, usually customers scanning QR code for checking in. When you go into the restaurant, you will scan it and to check in. Or these days, sometimes the restaurants or shops will incorporate menus into the QR code, so the visitors can scan the QR code and then to get access to the menu before they go into the restaurant. But for Chinese markets, we have QR code for so long, and then the experience is so much more extensive. So here is a really interesting example is in some restaurant in China, you can scan a QR code on the table and it will lead you to a mini program or mini page where you can make your order. And the most amazing thing about it sometimes it's that there are some mini program can allow you to split bill. So for example, there are 3 people sitting in the table, and then they can all scan a QR code individually, and then they can pick what they want, and then they can pay the bill by their WeChat. And then the stuff will be delivered to your table, and the bill already been paid individually by all the people on the table. So it's a really, really interesting experience. So I would say for China, scanning QR for Chinese customer in China or in the world, scanning QR code for them is mainly for convenience. While for the UK, for local customer, I think for nowadays it's more about for safety. And I'm going to give you some example of some solution we have done for local business. The first one is a QR code shopping experience we have done for a local business in Edinburgh called Jane Davidson. So basically, it's pre-pandemic. They see the growth of Chinese market, and there are quite a lot of Chinese customers get into their shop to try to buy something, but they don't actually have Chinese staff member in team. So what we actually help them to do is incorporate quite a lot of different QR code. There is one in the front door, and then there's one in the middle of the shop. And we're also creating a series of this kind of small QR code, which will lead the customer to a dedicated mini page where they can find some really interesting content about the piece that they're selling or the brand that they're selling, they're looking for in the shop. And then when they go into the page, you can see another QR code on the page, which will lead them to a WeChat content. So to create this kind of very affordable, simple experience, but very useful for the business to, give a little bit more information for their Chinese customer, even though they don't have a Chinese staff member in the team. So QR code actually can bring in quite a lot of convenience, not only for customer, but also for the business itself. Another example here is we creating this business card with a QR code, which will lead to mobile-friendly presentation. So this is solution we create for a local luxurious chauffeur company in Glasgow when they're actually trying to engage with Chinese partner. Chinese travel agency, so they can refer the customer to them in Scotland. So we create this kind of very phone-friendly presentation. So every time when she hand over this business card, and the audience can scan that QR code, follow her on WeChat, and get access to this really, design for phone presentation. We all know that WeChat is super huge these days, and something shareable on phone, it will make it super accessible, and it's also very necessary if you want to access to the Chinese market. So this is the second solution. We also created this kind of content for Glasgow Taxi to engage with students. So we create this kind of little posters with a QR code, scan to download app, and then there are a series of them actually, and then we created this kind of student groups, and then where we distribute this content, and then to help the business to keep in touch and also engage with the Chinese students. And yeah, so that's the Glasgow Taxi. And then the next thing is, as I said, if you want something slightly bit more comprehensive, QR code can actually lead to mini program. And if you're looking for this kind of solution, we also have to give you a little bit more guidance, but that's not our key point today. This is actually a mini program we created pre-pandemic, but at the time tourism basically stopped, so we actually haven't got time to develop it more, but it's already in there. And if you want to know more about our mini program development, it's happy to give you more information after this meeting. So I think the question in this part is your business accessible enough for the Chinese customer? We think QR code is actually creating that kind of really simple, it's a really simple solution for business to create something more accessible for Chinese customer. So what we can do for you, if you're really looking for developing some solution like that, is this kind of one QR code for all market kind of solution. Because as I said earlier, QR code is no longer just familiar by the Chinese customer. There are more customers these days they know what QR code is. So we think it's a really great opportunity to create something, for all market. And then there's a really interesting example is we're working with a client pre-pandemic, we're actually talking to develop a mini program, but post-pandemic, what we're actually talking about is to create a web page where have a multilingual options to lead to different kind of information. And once you scan different customers scan the QR code can actually access to different links, and then they will go to different the relevant, the language that they can understand and use this way to provide a service for all the markets, and it make the whole solution become so much more low cost, low risk, and so this is what we think it's a really interesting solution that business can consider in a post-pandemic market. Last bit, this is really exciting actually, is to hack the social game and develop your market. So I think according to what Alice just mentioned earlier, and word of mouth is super important. And then according to Visit Britain's report, it is so true. Word of mouth is one of the most important factors for Chinese customers' decision-making. And then I have more data in here giving you some interesting insights. So there's this report, it's a study on the consumer purchase decision for Chinese students in the UK. And then this report giving you some really interesting insight to understand, the type of Chinese customer that we have in the market. First insight is most Chinese students are collectivist. That basically means they are more into, have a group, following the group or be in the group and be a collective to take action. And then the second insight is collectivists are less likely to open for new product and brands. And I don't think it's something negative. It just means they will follow, a lot of comments and ideas from their peers. It's just like they like to act as a group. And I'm sure you already found this is the fact, according to some customer that you welcomed before, or some Chinese visitors around you. There are more data from here in here. So you can see word of mouth is at the top of the source of brand discovery among Chinese customer. Customer reviews on brand website is ranking high. So basically, I'm just telling you, word of mouth is super important. And also Chinese customers are trying to use searching engines to search the information about the brand. But I'm going to tell you, sorry. And that shows like searching is really, really important and, essential activity Chinese customer will do before they buy anything. And you can see the data in here in these two reports. Searching will be done before purchase. And more importantly is research will happen on multiple platforms. That means you should make sure that you're visible in more than one platform. And following that, and there is another really interesting trend or insight in here showing that most Chinese customers, they enjoy be on social or be online while they're traveling. So this is a report from Visit Britain. While on holiday, the Chinese tend to use more social media than the average international traveler. So this is a really, really interesting trend. They will try to search online to see recommendation and then where to go, where to eat. And also, on the other hand, they will try to share this experience. So before we talk about searching, maybe you got some consultant or marketeer tell you need to be on Baidu, but searching these days are so much more than on Baidu because social media searching is just so popular. And there are some examples here. Firstly, on WeChat, there is a searching function and customer can search on WeChat to get access to a lot of brand information. And then there's another app called 大众点评, basically in English, people's choice. And then it's a bit like Yelp in here. So there are so many local shops and restaurants inspiration from this platform. Social media, it's a searching engine for Chinese customer. I got some very quick example to show you here. And you can see here, there are some screenshots of how Chinese people are sharing their shopping experience or eating experience in Edinburgh. Here is the screenshot from the app called Red. There is another kind of way of sharing is there will be this kind of list of products created by customer themselves or, or travelers, and they will create this kind of list of certain shops or you know, from here, you can see the example is the supermarkets recommendation. What can you buy from the supermarket? It's a list of shopping. And the third thing is this kind of post sharing. A lot of customer will try to replicate the scene in the movie, or they will try to, as I said earlier, the Jay Chou music video. There are some, you know, student or customer, they will try to replicate and go to the spot and take a photo to compare with the original scene. And then also there are some customers who share their experience in restaurants. They will share those most Instagrammable design, and you know, they will try to use this kind of social media to also share, you know, for example, the restaurant that only known by the local people, because these days sharing like this kind of social currency is very, very big for them. Here are just a little bit more example. So what we can see in here, all about this post, its key opinion customers are really, really influential. So it's really, really important to, you know, develop this kind of customers, or potentially to reach out to this kind of key opinion customers to develop your market. So we think that's a really, really good solution to go. So what we can help you to do if you are wanting to reach out to more customer or Chinese students or Chinese customer, is we can help you to engage with KOC. Firstly, we can help you to order if there are some comments about your business online, and then to see if there are some negative feedback you need to tackle. And then the next step is to strategically shape your USP to develop this kind of, you know, proposition to really increase that kind of sharing possibility. The last point is then to work with this KOC to promote your business. So that's it for today. 3 points that we could potentially help you, and then we hope that giving you some inspiration about the Chinese market and also beyond the Chinese market.